Hello, welcome to Foundations of Bible History. I'm David Seeley. Today we're studying about God preparing England. May the Lord bless you as we study our lesson today. In our last lesson, we learned about the work of William Tyndale in translating the Bible into English. He was executed by order of King Henry VIII on October the 6th, 1536. Tyndale's last words were, "Lord, open the eyes of the King of England." In 3 short years, God answered Tyndale's prayer, but not in a way anyone may have expected. It was not that King Henry VIII had a change of conscience regarding publishing the Bible in English. His motives were more evil, but the Lord sometimes uses the evil intentions of men to bring about his glory. King Henry VIII had in fact requested that the Pope permit him to divorce his wife and marry his mistress. The Pope refused. King Henry responded by marrying his mistress anyway, later having 2 of his many wives executed. King Henry also renounced Roman Catholicism, taking England out from under Rome's religious control, and declaring himself as the reigning head of state to also be the new head of the church. This new branch of the Christian church, neither Roman Catholic nor truly Protestant, became known as the Anglican Church, or the Church of England. King Henry acted essentially as its pope. His first act was to further defy the wishes of Rome by funding the printing of the Scriptures in English, the first legal English Bible, just for spite. Miles Coverdale and John Thomas Matthew Rogers had remained loyal disciples the last 6 years of Tyndale's life, and they carried the English Bible project forward and even accelerated it. Coverdale finished translating the Old Testament, and in 1535 he printed the first complete Bible in the English language, making use of Luther's German text and also the Latin scriptures as his source. Thus, the first complete English Bible was printed on October the 4th, 1535. It is known as the Coverdale Bible. In 1539, Thomas Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury, hired Miles Coverdale, at the request of King Henry VIII, to publish the Great Bible. It became the first English Bible authorized for public use, as it was distributed to every church and chained to the pulpit. And a reader was even provided so the illiterate could hear the Word of God in plain English. It would seem that William Tyndale's last wish was granted just 3 years after his martyrdom. Cranmer's Bible, published by Coverdale, was known as the Great Bible due to its great size. A large pulpit page of the Bible measured over 14 inches, or 35.6 centimeters tall. 7 editions of this version were printed between April of 1539 and December of 1541. For a period of time, there was freedom to print the Word of God in English. England was no longer under the rule of the Pope. That freedom did not last long. After King Henry VIII's death, King Edward VI took the throne for a short period of time, And he was followed by the reign of Queen Mary, who is so brutal that she became known as Bloody Mary. Queen Mary was a loyal Roman Catholic. She persecuted and killed hundreds of Protestants and Anglicans, members of the Church of England, during her reign. She ordered that all English Bibles be burned. She ordered the execution of John Thomas Matthew Rogers and Thomas Cranmer in 1555. This was a very dark time in the history of England. Queen Mary's vicious campaign caused hundreds of people to leave England to seek safety in Geneva, Switzerland. Among those who assembled in Geneva were a great number of great English scholars. These scholars produced a new English Bible that became known as the Geneva Bible. The completed Geneva Bible was published in 1560. By this time, Queen Elizabeth I had succeeded the throne of Queen Mary. The Geneva Bible was dedicated to Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth I was not a Catholic. She promoted complete separation of England from the Roman Catholic Church. The New Geneva Bible became very successful and popular throughout England. For several generations, this Bible was used for personal study in England and Scotland, and later in America. The Geneva Bible is the Bible of firsts. It was the first Bible to be fully translated into English from the original languages of Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic. It was the first English Bible to be printed in easy-to-read printing type. The Geneva Bible was the first study Bible with marginal notes and commentaries written in the margins. It was also the first Bible to be divided into chapters and verses. And the Geneva Bible was the first Bible to be printed in an affordable and small size that was easy to carry. So this was the first Bible that was portable. During the reign of Elizabeth I, the country of Spain, under the control of the Catholics, became very angry about England leaving the Catholic Church, and they sent a fleet of ships, war ships, toward England. Their orders were to kill the Queen and replace her with a Catholic king or queen. King Philip II of Spain was angry about the spread of Protestantism in England. The sea attack that he launched in 1588 was known as the Spanish Armada. The Spanish Armada was an enormous 130-ship naval fleet dispatched by Spain in 1588 as part of a planned invasion of England. Following years of hostility between Spain and England, King Philip II of Spain assembled the flotilla, or the group of ships, in hopes of removing Protestant Queen Elizabeth from the throne and restoring the Roman Catholic faith in England. Spain thought their armada was invincible or undestroyable. They set sail that May, but it was outsmarted by the English, and then it was battered by storms, and the ships limped their way back to Spain, with at least a third of them were sunken or damaged. The Spanish Armada lost over 2,000 men during their naval engagement with England, but its journey proved to be far more deadly. The once mighty fleet of ships was ravaged by sea storms as it rounded Scotland and the western coast of Ireland. Several ships sank in the storms, others ran aground, or broke apart after being thrown against the shore. By the time the great and most fortunate navy finally reached Spain 2 months later, it had lost as many as 60 of its 130 ships, and had suffered some 15,000 deaths. God had his hand in the defeat of the Spanish Armada. England had a very weak military. The Spanish military was strong and powerful. God disrupted the Spanish ships with raging storms, disease, and military defeat. God was not interested in England becoming Roman Catholic again. Their defeat was much like what we read in the Bible in Job 4:9. By the blast of God they perish, and by the breath of his nostrils are they consumed. Had Spain been successful in this attack, England would have gone back to Roman Catholic control. God was preserving and preparing the nation of England to produce the greatest written work in the history of the world, the King James Bible. In the spring of 1603, England was at a time of uncertainty and change. Queen Elizabeth I had become very difficult to approach. She became stubborn and moody and unpredictable. She had never married, so she had no child to take her throne, no son to become king, no daughter to become queen, and it was up to her to choose who would be the next king of England. Many political and religious groups were waiting for her death so they could seek power and influence with the new king. Roman Catholics wanted England to return to Catholicism. Puritans and Protestants wanted to continue the Reformation. Queen Elizabeth's last few years had been spent ignoring problems or suppressing them. Now the nation was in suspense about the future. Who would take the throne? Would the new king go back to the Catholicism, persecution, and execution of Protestants? Would the new king continue the Reformation efforts and lead the nation toward a new day of religious tolerance? As the queen's health faded and she was nearing death, she still refused to reveal who she had chosen to take the throne. Finally, on her deathbed, Queen Elizabeth made it known that the new King of England was to be her cousin, King James VI of Scotland. Immediately, messengers rode horseback 400 miles north to Edinburgh, Scotland, to give the word to King James VI that he was chosen to be King James I of England. As they rode north, Sir Robert Cecil, 1st Earl of Salisbury, went with trumpeters and heralds to the gates of Whitehall and Cheapside to proclaim that the Queen was dead. Long live the King. There were bonfires to celebrate the peaceful transition and to prepare the way for the imperial funeral of Elizabeth I and the majestic journey south of the new king. James was in bed, not yet asleep, when the messengers arrived at his Scotland palace to bring him the news. He had been King of Scotland since he was 1 year old. Sir Robert Carey was the first messenger to arrive. He had ridden horseback night and day for about 72 hours, changing horses several times along the way. By the time he arrived in Scotland, Sir Robert Carey was bruised and bleeding, because on the way he had been kicked by one of his horses and had fallen off of one of his horses. King James was eager to take his new place as King of England. This was a time in England's history when there was a lot of religious and political uncertainty. The Church of England, established by King Henry VIII, had been the official church for 40 years. The bishops of the church loved the security of the established church and were not quick to acknowledge any corruption in the church. On the other side of the debate were the Puritans and the Presbyterians. They wanted to purify the Anglican Church, Church of England, from corruption. Both the bishops and the Puritans wanted to influence King James in their favor. As we will learn in future lessons, God used King James to unite the country and bring forth a new English Bible that would change the history of the world forever.